The connection between language and how we understand the world is something that has always excited me. Language is not just the way we communicate, but also how we think and what our culture, history and values are. It's interesting because I keep hearing a lot of people saying, oh, I learned German and French in school, but years later they literally know nothing. And I understand how it feels because we still teach languages in a very conventional way, and it's challenging to pick up stuff when we don't travel, right? I truly think we need to be learning other languages to close the gap between us. And for the record, the experience of learning and mastering a new language is mind-blowing. My degrees are worth nothing compared to what it takes to learn and master a language. And I'm not talking about difficulty, but the sense of achievement. So in this video, I want to share with you how learning languages improved my life in 4 ways. And I'll be speaking in different languages to show you. But don't worry, I put subtitles in English, Spanish, Portuguese and French, so feel free to enable them accordingly. And as always, I'm leaving timestamps below, feel free to skip and watch the one you actually care. Let's get started. Number 1, confidence. Cuando hablas un idioma extranjero, hablar con extraños se convierte en una parte normal de la vida cotidiana. Por ejemplo, comprar ropa nueva en un centro comercial, pedir recomendaciones de un menú en un restaurante o pedir ayuda si estás perdido. Te acostumbras a buscar la incomodidad y a hacer un esfuerzo consciente para comunicarte de una manera que la otra persona entienda fácilmente. Cuando viajé a Inglaterra por primera vez a los 18 años, aprendí más inglés que lo que había estudiado durante 10 años en Argentina, mi país de origen. Me enfrenté a situaciones desconocidas, sin amigos y con nativos ingleses que no hablaban una palabra de español, mi idioma materno. Y naturalmente desarrollé un mayor sentido de confianza en otros aspectos de mi vida. So as a native Spanish speaker, when I learned English back in Argentina, I was embarrassed to speak in front of my friends and family just because of this fear of making mistakes, this nonsense perfectionism. But this fear was gone as soon as I traveled to the UK on my own when I was 18 years old. I lived with a host family for a month in Cambridge, studied English, and those 4 to 6 weeks there gave me enough confidence to speak to anyone. My mindset changed. In the words of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within our way of thinking. Number 2, new destinations. Mas depois eu viajei para países onde o espanhol e o inglês eram os idiomas principais, porque tinha medo de ser um sujeito muito esquisito na frente das pessoas locais. O problema com isso é que eu sempre me sentia relativamente confortável viajando e nunca visitava nenhum lugar com uma cultura completamente diferente. Bem, somente o Reino Unido. Eu decidi então me desafiar e aprender português. E viajei algumas vezes ao Brasil para me testar. Mas uma vez aprendi com professores nativos brasileiros que não falavam uma palavra em espanhol e viajei algumas vezes ao Brasil para acelerar o meu processo. Isso foi uma beirada de jogo para mim. So one more time, this fear of embarrassment and making a mistake was gone again. I had incorporated Portuguese in addition to my existing Spanish and English skill set. I was able to travel to more and more countries and feeling more comfortable. But besides being able to speak those languages, the best part of traveling was integrating into different cultures. This shift in perspective has allowed me to travel without fear, but also to make friends around the world, understand how they live, what they like, how they really feel, and experience the kindness of humanity in multiple places, right? Number 3, career. L'apprentissage d'une langue étrangère m'a ouvert un monde de possibilités. J'ai obtenu une bourse en France pour terminer mes études. J'avais très peu de connaissances en français, mais je n'avais pas peur. Je pensais que j'apprendrais dans les pays, comme je l'ai fait, avec l'anglais et les portugais. Cette bourse était à l'origine d'une durée de 6 mois, mais à ce moment-là, j'étais déterminé à rester un peu plus de temps pour changer ma vie. Je voulais à nouveau me remettre en question et travailler à l'étranger. Alors une fois mes études terminées à Troyes, dans le nord de la France, j'ai trouvé un stage à Fos-sur-Mer, près de Marseille, dans le sud de la France. Et après c'est là mon premier emploi permanent à Paris. Je ne suis pas revenu en Argentine et je suis passé les 3 années suivantes en France. I'm not gonna lie, learning French was definitely more difficult than any other language for me, but still managed to study, work, travel, make friends, and essentially to do everything I wanted in those 3 years.
Dormir en un auto para ahorrarnos una noche de hostel es una locura.
Pero vamos a...
¡Lo vale!
The interesting part is that my first job in France was in finance and required somebody being able to speak fluently French, Spanish, English, and Portuguese to cover clients in Europe. such a coincidence I spoke those languages. If we are targeting the global marketplace, or if we are required to travel on business trips to different countries, speaking foreign languages will make us stand out. So certainly languages were the beginning of my global citizenship journey. Number 4, relationships. This is probably the most interesting one. From Paris, I relocated to London. Even though I traveled to England when I was 18, I never really had a working experience in an English-speaking country. You know, one thing is to speak the language in a casual way, and the other thing is being able to speak in a business way. So one more time, I wanted to challenge myself and I relocated. This was in early 2013. So it's now been 8 years that I'm based in London. And besides meeting amazing people here and understanding the culture, I met my wife here. If you watched some of my previous videos, you'd probably know that she's Lithuanian. By the way, I'm thinking of challenging myself and learning Lithuanian. I've been saying that for the last 6 years, but hey, the first step is always to say it right. All I know so far is Labas, man vardas Alejandro, aš esu iš Argentinos, man labai patinka tinginys, šakotis, kugelis, cepelinai ir aš myliu Kristiną. Ačiū labai, iki. How was it? Good? Decent? Because I'm not gonna edit that, right? Like, this is my starting point. Anyway, learning languages also increase our chances to have a relationship with somebody very different. I'm not saying we should not be with our local people, but it's very empowering to connect this way with other people. I'm talking about any other type of relationship, right? Like if we're approaching a person with a different native language than ours and we make an effort to communicate with them in their language, I feel this is a sign of respect and they will instantly make them more open to getting to know us. Final thoughts. This has been a very quick summary of my story of how learning languages improved my life. You may have your own story. You can have many reasons for learning languages similar to the ones I have shared with you here. Whatever the reasons might be, we can be sure that speaking a different language will positively affect us, our travel, our work, and our relationships. I love reading lots of self-help books in hope of increasing my confidence in different aspects of my life, but to be fully honest with you, the best university for me was the University of Travel and Languages. In other words, my tailor-made education to understand life. This was the only way I ever found to get comfortable doing the uncomfortable. If you like this video, you might also want to check this video over here about 3 moments of clarity I had in Brazil and the reason why I started a blog, newsletter and YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.